Hi again then guys, and welcome to the 71st episode of Days Gone By on Gran Turismo 6, and this particular installment is featuring a car which would probably be more popular on Gran Turismo and have more use were it featured under the alternate name and the alternate manufacturer name that this car has, because of course the Nissan Bluebird, which is this vehicle, is probably better known, maybe not everywhere, but certainly here, I know in America is as well, as the Datsun 510. This is the Bluebird 510 generation, but I think more people know it as the Datsun. Maybe not, maybe that's just the way it seems from what I've seen, but I certainly know this car better as the Datsun than the Nissan. The Nissan Bluebird, it doesn't exactly have a good name as far as performance goes. There are some quick versions, but it's not generally thought of for that. With that being said though, oftentimes with vehicles like this, smaller, older vehicles which don't necessarily have a huge amount of power or even that impressive a spec overall, could sometimes turn out to be really good classics. Sometimes they turn out to be not necessarily class leading but great sleeper cars, and sometimes they are class leading, something like an RX 500 from Mazda or a Dome Zero, which turns out to be a dominating machine at multiple PP levels. So how does this particular car fare? Is it more of an unsung hero and a hidden gem, or is it just okay? Or maybe even is it a bad car, or a car which doesn't really need to be purchased? Because there are definitely vehicles out there like that which you don't need to buy, but they're just fun to own. Well, as far as performance goes, it actually has really good tuning potential, and the performance that it offers, in some ways more than others of course, goes beyond the raw numbers. That often happens with classics which don't have as much power, but they turn out to be very adept oftentimes at taking on cars with much more power and much more torque because of the cornering ability which they have. And I would say that this car falls quite squarely into that category, because in a straight line, as you'd probably expect, it's not a monster. The car's got a 1.6 litre engine, it's rear-wheel drive, you can turbocharge that engine up to 240 horsepower, which is actually pretty good. That's not far off the Prince Skyline, the really expensive version which I love, the BLRA-3, and it's actually got quite a bit of torque as well, 185 foot-pounds. But when you combine that with the fact that, as you'd probably assume, it is lightweight, 812 kilos after tuning of course, and you've got some good horsepower per tonne, it's just under 300. That's really decent for a car that's so small, and at 25 grand, or just under 26 technically, it's super affordable as well. And we're getting to discussing more of these cars in this series than most people usually would. Cars which don't lead the pack in terms of numbers, cars which don't have the biggest prices and even don't see the most use from the vast majority of players. But the great thing is, those cars reward the people like us, sleeper car fans for instance, who do go out of their way to try and find those vehicles which don't have the recognition which they arguably deserve, but actually turn out to be really good, maybe in general, or maybe in more of a niched way. Now I would say this car is more the latter. It's not an all-round, all-beater, like a GSX-R4, a Dome Zero, or an RX 500, but what it is a classic which, for those who would like to use it, maybe who like the car, or who just want to try something different in general, definitely has the potential, under the right circumstances, to be good for that. The handling is fantastic on this car. It goes beyond good. It's one of probably, I would say, the best handling cars of this series. And that's saying a lot, because a lot of the small classics are really good, but some of them can be temperamental, or sometimes don't cope as well when they have more power. This one really does. Having 240 horsepower and 185 foot-pounds of torque is no problem whatsoever for this car. It feels like it could easily cope with 300 horsepower and significantly more torque and even less weight without being overly twitchy or skittish. It's just got a really good chassis, great handling, it's small, it's light, and it's fun. It's got so much personality. Some cars, as I've mentioned before, they're quick, but they're not necessarily all that fun. They're more clinical cars that just get the job done, but you don't necessarily enjoy driving them. There are definitely some cars like that for me. This is definitely not one of those. It is fun, It's got a lot of character, a lot of personality. You can throw it through the corners, and although it doesn't get the use I would say that it definitely does deserve, for those who do go out of their way to buy and tune it for whatever PP level. Incidentally, the maximum PP level is only 461, which is nice and low, so it's perfect for 460 PP racing, 450, or even lower if you want to take it down there, and it can compete. Most definitely it can compete at that level. It's a car which does not have the reputation on Gran Turismo of being something to worry about. On other games, such as Forza, where it's known as the Datsun, it's known for being an awesome drag car. It's one of the quickest cars, for instance, on Forza 3 and Forza 4. It's one of the fastest drag cars in the game. On Gran Turismo, that's not the case, of course, but it's kind of similar in a different way. It's more about the cornering ability that people don't expect. High cornering speeds, great handling, great maneuverability. Those things can come in very useful on twisty circuits. Something like the Gran Turismo Arena, for instance. You can fly around that track in a car like this, even with more power. And although it's a little bit more niched, of course, not everyone needs a car like that. For those who do, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this, and it's not a big purchase to make at only 26 grand. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.